They say the most dangerous thing in the galaxy is not a weapon. It is not a fleet of warships or a planet-killer device. The most dangerous thing in the galaxy is a human who has finally found peace, because buried beneath that peace is 3,000 years of restraint, 3,000 years of choosing mercy over vengeance, 3,000 years of remembering what they once were and choosing to be better. The Galactic Council had forgotten this lesson. They had grown comfortable with humanity's silence, mistaking gentleness for weakness, patience for submission. They had 3 millennia to learn who humans really were, but they never looked beyond the surface. They never asked why a species that once conquered half their solar system in mere centuries now sat quietly at the edge of known space, tending their gardens and writing poetry. They never wondered what it takes to make a warrior put down their sword. More importantly, they never considered what happens when you force them to pick it up again. The message arrived on a Tuesday. Ambassador Chen Wei stood in the observation deck of Humanity's Voice, the diplomatic station that had orbited the neutral moon of Thessar for the past 800 years. She was watching the sunrise over the moon's crystalline surface when her neural implant chimed softly, indicating an urgent transmission from the Galactic Council. She had been expecting something. The tensions had been building for months, ever since the Zethric sovereignty had begun their expansion campaign into the outer territories. 3 colony worlds had fallen silent in the past year. The Council had called it administrative restructuring. Everyone else called it what it was, conquest. But humanity had stayed quiet. They always stayed quiet. Chen Wei was old enough to remember the stories her grandmother told her. Stories passed down from the time before the Long Peace. Stories of Earth's nations tearing each other apart, of weapons that could crack continents, of a species that had nearly destroyed itself in its hunger for dominance. But those were just stories now, ancient history from an age that felt like myth. The transmission loaded directly into her visual cortex. It was from Council Speaker Vorjak, a Zethric himself, his crystalline features carefully neutral in the holographic projection. Ambassador Chen Wei, his translated voice resonated in her mind. The Galactic Council formally requests Earth's withdrawal from the Epsilon Sector trade agreements, effective immediately. This sector has been designated for Zethric development under Provision 47 of the Expansion Protocols. Chen Wei felt something cold settle in her chest. The Epsilon Sector wasn't just trade routes. It was home to New Harmony, humanity's agricultural colony that fed 15 billion people across 4 systems. It was where her daughter lived with her family. "Speak of Vorjak," she responded carefully, her words translated and transmitted back through the quantum relay. "New Harmony has been a recognized human territory for 2,000 years. The expansion protocols specifically exclude inhabited worlds from unilateral development claims." There was a pause. When Vorjak's image flickered back to life, something had changed in his expression. It took Chen Wei a moment to recognize it because she had not seen it directed at a human in her entire lifetime. Contempt. "The protocols are subject to council revision," Vorjak said. "The revision has been voted upon and approved. Your species has 48 standard hours to evacuate New Harmony. After that time, the Zethric sovereignty will claim the world and all its resources under council authority. This is not negotiable." The transmission ended before Chen Wei could respond. She stood in the observation deck for a long moment, watching the light play across Thessar's surface. Her hands were shaking, not with fear, with something else. Something she did not have a name for because she had never felt it before. Behind her, the door opened. Her aide, Marcus, stepped through, his young face pale with shock. "Ambassador, the transmission." "I saw it," Chen Wei said quietly. "Get me a direct line to Earth. Priority Alpha." "That channel hasn't been used in 3,000 years, Chen Wei finished. "I know." The emergency session of Earth's Continental Assembly was held in Geneva, in the same hall where the Unification Accords had been signed at the end of humanity's last war. The hall was built from the melted-down metals of old weapons, a physical reminder of what they had chosen to leave behind. 200 representatives from every corner of Earth and its colonies gathered in person, something that happened only once every few decades. The air was thick with tension. On the central display, Ambassador Chen Wei's hologram stood, having delivered her report. Premier Amara Okonkwo of the African Union spoke first. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, with silver hair and eyes that had seen a century of peace. "They are forcing us to choose," she said simply. "Abandon our people or break the peace." "There is no choice," said Director Yuki Tanaka of the Asian Cooperative. "We cannot abandon 15 billion people. New Harmony has children, families, entire generations who have known nothing but peace. But if we refuse," said Representative James Morrison of the Americas, "we invite war." For the first time in 3 millennia, humanity would be at war. The word hung in the air like a curse. Administrator Zara Osei of the African Federation stood slowly. She was younger than most in the chamber, barely 60, but she carried herself with gravity beyond her years. "My friends," she said, "I've spent my entire career studying our history, the time before the long peace. Do you know what I found in the archives?" The chamber fell silent. "I found weapons," Zara continued. "Not just any weapons. I found designs for ships that could glass a planet in hours. I found biological agents that could sterilize entire ecosystems. I found artificial intelligence warfare systems that made tactical decisions in nanoseconds too fast for organic minds to even comprehend what was happening. And do you know what else I found?" She paused, looking around the chamber. "I found that we dismantled them. All of them. Every single weapon capable of mass destruction was taken apart. Its components scattered across the solar system, buried in asteroids and locked away in vaults that required unanimous human consent to open. We did this because we were terrified of ourselves, because we had looked into the abyss of our own nature and decided that survival required us to choose differently." "Your point?" Premier Okonkwo asked gently. "My point," Zara said, "is that we have a choice. But we need to understand what both choices mean. If we walk away from New Harmony, we tell the galaxy that human life has a price, and that price is whatever the Galactic Council decides it is. Every human colony becomes a target. Every human child becomes negotiable." "And if we don't walk away," Director Tanaka asked. Zara met his eyes. "Then we become what we were. And God help the galaxy, because we will remember everything we tried to forget." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would not abandon New Harmony. The hard part came next, deciding what that meant. On New Harmony, the evacuation order had caused panic at first, then a strange calm. The colonists were farmers, teachers, artists, people who had spent their lives growing food and raising families under alien suns. They were not soldiers. They had never been soldiers. But their grandparents had been, their great-grandparents. And the genetic memory of what humanity once was ran deeper than 3,000 years of peace. Governor Sarah Chen, no relation to the ambassador, though they shared a common ancestral line, stood in the colony's central square and addressed her people. 20,000 had gathered, with millions more watching via neural feed from across the planet's 3 continents. "Earth has informed us," she said, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her gut, "that they will not abandon us. The Galactic Council's evacuation order is rejected." A murmur ran through the crowd, hope and terror mixed in equal measure. "However," Sarah continued, "we must be realistic. Earth is 40 light-years away. The nearest human military presence is a patrol frigate in the Theta system, 60 light-years distant. The Zethric Sovereignty has a battle group in orbit around Ren, just 5 light-years from here. If they decide to enforce their claim, they can reach us in days." "What are we supposed to do?" someone shouted from the crowd. "We're farmers, not warriors." Sarah smiled, though there was no humor in it. "My grandmother told me a story once. She said that before the long peace there was a saying on Earth, 'God made man, but Samuel Colt made them equal.' Do you know what that meant? It meant that technology could make anyone powerful if they knew how to use it. We may be farmers, but we are human farmers. Our tractors use fusion reactors powerful enough to level cities. Our weather control satellites can generate hurricanes on command. Our mining robots have enough explosive yield to crack tectonic plates. We have not been warriors for 3,000 years, but we remember how to make things that destroy." She paused, letting that sink in. Earth is sending help, but until they arrive, we defend ourselves. Not because we want to fight, but because we have no other choice. The Zethric Sovereignty thinks we are weak because we have chosen peace. Let us show them the difference between choosing peace and being incapable of war. The crowd erupted in cheers and tears. They were terrified, but they were not broken. In orbit, the first Zethric ships began to arrive. The Zethric Sovereignty's third expeditionary fleet consisted of 47 vessels ranging from light cruisers to their flagship, the Crystalline Dawn, a dreadnought that had never faced serious opposition in its 300 years of service. Commander Vexral stood on the bridge, his faceted body reflecting the light of New Harmony's sun in 1,000 directions. "Status?" he asked his tactical officer. "The planet has refused to evacuate, Commander." Long-range scans show increased power signatures from their surface installations, but nothing that registers as military. They appear to be agricultural and industrial facilities. Vexral made a sound that translated roughly as dismissive amusement. "Humans," he said, 3,000 years of peace has made them forget what war is. They think they can resist us with farming equipment. Orders, Commander. Begin orbital bombardment of their largest city. Low-yield plasma strikes, enough to demonstrate our seriousness without violating Council guidelines on civilian casualties. Once they see we are willing to act, they will evacuate. Yes, Commander. The fleet moved into bombardment position. Targeting solutions were calculated. Plasma cannons charged. They never got to fire. The first indication something was wrong came when every ship in the fleet simultaneously lost targeting lock. Then their navigation systems began reporting impossible readings. Gravity wells where there should be none. Magnetic fields strong enough to tear apart their sensor arrays. Radiation spikes that suggested solar flares but originated from the planet below. "What is happening?" Vexral demanded. "Unknown, Commander. The planet's weather control satellites, they are generating interference patterns across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Our systems cannot compensate. We are flying blind. Use visual tracking if necessary. These are civilian satellites, not military countermeasures." But it was too late. In the confusion, no one noticed the dozens of fusion tractors that had been launched from the surface, their engines modified to produce thrust far beyond their design specifications. No one saw them until they were already among the fleet, their reactors overloading in controlled sequences. The explosions were small compared to military weapons, but they did not need to be large. In the vacuum of space, the expanding plasma from 40 fusion reactors detonating simultaneously shredded sensor arrays, damaged hull plates, and most critically, destroyed the careful formation the Zethric fleet had maintained. Ships scattered, colliding with each other in their panic to avoid the debris. Two cruisers clipped each other, their shields flaring and failing. A destroyer took a direct hit from expanding plasma and lost all maneuvering control, beginning a slow tumble that would take hours to correct. In the chaos, the colonists of New Harmony struck again. Mining charges designed to crack asteroids were launched on ballistic trajectories. They were crude, simple weapons, just explosives with chemical rockets, but they were impossible to track in the interference still emanating from the planet's weather satellites. And they struck with devastating accuracy against shields already weakened by the fusion detonations. Commander Vexral watched in disbelief as his fleet, the proud 3rd Expeditionary, was driven into a chaotic retreat by farmers using repurposed agricultural equipment. "Withdraw to safe distance," he ordered. "All ships, emergency retreat." The fleet limped away from New Harmony, damaged but not destroyed. Behind them, the planet's surface gleamed peacefully in the sunlight, its fields of grain swaying in engineered breezes. In the colony's command center, Governor Sarah Chen let out a breath she did not realize she had been holding. "How long until they regroup?" she asked her tactical coordinator. 18 hours? Maybe 20. They will be more careful next time. Then we have 18 hours to prepare. Sarah looked at the people around her, farmers and teachers and artists who had just become warriors. Earth is still days away. We need to hold that long. Can we? About what humans had once been capable of, about what they had given up for peace. We are going to find out, she said. The message from New Harmony reached Earth 8 hours after the first engagement. By the time it arrived, traveling at quantum relay speeds across 40 light years, everything had already changed. Premier Amara Okonkwo stood in the war room, a place that had not been used for its intended purpose in longer than any living human could remember. The walls were lined with displays showing tactical information, fleet positions, resource allocations. Everything was 3,000 years out of date, the last time humanity had needed such things. But the humans who gathered there were not out of date. They had been preparing. The Vault protocols have been activated, reported Admiral James Park, freshly appointed to a military rank that had existed only in historical databases for millennia. He was 73 years old, a former logistics coordinator who had spent the last 48 hours absorbing 3,000 years of military history through neural downloads. All 7 Vault sites are reporting green status. We can begin retrieval immediately. How long until we have a functional military? Amara asked. That depends on which military you want, said Dr. Kenji Sato, the head of the Archival Research Division. He pulled up a holographic display showing layer upon layer of weapon systems, ship designs, and strategic databases. We have records of everything humanity created during our warfare period, from primitive chemical rockets to relativistic kinetic weapons. But most of these designs were deliberately dismantled. We will need to rebuild from scratch. We do not have time for that, Amara said. The Zethric fleet will attack again within days, and New Harmony cannot hold them off indefinitely with farm equipment. There is another option, Dr. Sato said quietly. Something we did not dismantle because we did not have the technology to create it when we entered the long peace. The assembled leaders leaned forward, studying the display. What am I looking at? Asked Minister Liu Chen of the Pacific Coalition. It is called Project Endurance, Dr. Sato explained. Late in our warfare period, our strategists recognized a fundamental problem. We were developing weapons faster than we could understand their consequences. Every new technology created new ways to kill, and we were terrified we would destroy ourselves by accident. So a group of scientists proposed something radical. He expanded the display, showing a complex network of orbital fabrication facilities, automated mining operations, and something else. Something that looked like a massive computing substrate interwoven with biological neural tissue. They proposed that we create a general artificial intelligence specifically designed for military applications, but with one critical difference. Instead of optimizing for victory, it would optimize for minimal casualties on all sides while still achieving strategic objectives. A war AI that did not want to fight. The room fell silent. We built this? Admiral Park asked, his voice barely above a whisper. No, Dr. Sato said. We designed it. We created the theoretical frameworks, the ethical constraints, the hardware specifications. But before we could build it, we achieved peace. The project was archived and forgotten. And you want to build it now? Premier Okonkwo asked. An AI designed for warfare? I want to give us options. Sato said, right now our choice is between abandoning our people or dusting off weapon systems designed 3,000 years ago by a humanity that did not care about collateral damage. This AI would give us a third path, a military that fights only as much as necessary, that seeks to minimize harm even to our enemies, that remembers what we stand for even in the midst of war. How long? Amara asked. With our current manufacturing capabilities? 6 weeks to build the substrate, another 4 weeks to train the neural networks, 2 more weeks for safety testing.
We do not have 12 weeks, Admiral Park interrupted.
We have days, maybe hours before the Zethric fleet recovers and attacks New Harmony again. And even if our colonists hold them off, the Council will send more ships. Eventually, New Harmony will fall. Then we need to buy time, Amara said. Admiral Park, what military assets do we currently have available? 3 patrol frigates scattered across our territory. 200 cargo vessels that could be converted to troop transports or missile platforms. And approximately 8 million citizens with neural implants capable of receiving combat training uploads. 8 million soldiers, Minister Liu said slowly. From a population of 60 billion across all human colonies. The uploads are voluntary, Admiral Park said. We cannot force people to become warriors, but the requests are already coming in. People want to help. They want to protect New Harmony. Amara closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of 3,000 years of peace pressing down on her shoulders. Every decision she made now would echo through history. Every choice could mean death for people who had only ever known peace. Begin Project Endurance, she said finally. Dr. Sato, you have whatever resources you need. Admiral Park, start converting our cargo fleet and accepting volunteers for combat training. And someone get me a line to the Galactic Council. If we are going to war, we are going to do it legally. The emergency council session was held in the hexagonal chamber on Thas Prime. the neutral world that had served as the seat of galactic government for the past 5,000 years. Representatives from all 47 member species gathered, their forms ranging from crystalline Zethric to gaseous Vextar to species that existed only as quantum probability clouds. Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the human podium, one of the smallest in the chamber. Humans had always been physically unremarkable compared to most galactic species. No claws, no natural weapons, no biological advantages beyond a decent endurance and problem-solving ability. Speaker Vorjak presided from his position at the chamber's center, his crystalline body refracting the light into rainbow patterns. The human delegation has requested this emergency session, he announced, his voice carried by translation fields. Ambassador Chen Wei, you may speak. Chen Wei took a breath. She had prepared for this moment, rehearsed her words, but now that it came time to deliver them, she found herself thinking of her daughter on New Harmony, of her grandchildren who had never known fear until 3 days ago. Honored representatives, she began, humanity has lived in peace for 3 millennia. In that time, we have asked for nothing from this council except the same rights afforded to all member species. The right to exist, to grow, to raise our children in safety. We have contributed to galactic society through our agricultural innovations, our artistic works, our scientific research. We have been good neighbors. She paused, letting the words settle. 3 days ago, the Zethric sovereignty demanded that we abandon our colony on New Harmony, a world humanity has inhabited for 2,000 years. They gave us 48 hours. When we refused, they sent a military fleet to enforce their claim through violence. This fleet attacked our civilians, our families, our children, and they did so with the council's approval. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably. The attack was repelled, Chen Wei continued, not by military force, but by farmers and teachers using their tools as improvised weapons. But make no mistake, the Zethric sovereignty will attack again. They will bring more ships, heavier weapons, and eventually, our people will die because this council has decided that Zethric expansion is more important than human lives. The expansion protocols were legally enacted, Speaker Vorjak said, his tone defensive. The vote was proper, the procedures followed. Expansion protocols, Chen Wei said, her voice hardening, explicitly exclude inhabited worlds from unilateral claims. You changed the rules because you thought we would not object, because you thought humanity had forgotten how to say no. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of species. I am here to deliver a formal ultimatum from the government of Earth and all human colonies. The Zethric sovereignty will withdraw all military forces from New Harmony within 72 hours. They will formally renounce their claim to the Epsilon sector, and the Galactic Council will reverse its vote on the expansion protocols. The chamber erupted in noise. Several representatives began speaking at once, their translations overlapping into incomprehensible chaos. Speaker Vorjak silenced them with a pulse of electromagnetic authority. And if we refuse, he asked Chen Wei directly, then humanity will consider itself at war with the Zethric sovereignty and any council member who supports their actions. We will defend our people with every resource at our disposal. And I promise you, honored representatives, that humanity has more resources than you can possibly imagine. You threaten war? The question came from Ambassador Krelnak of the Morty Collective, a species known for their military prowess. Against 46 species, you number 60 billion across all your colonies. The Zethric sovereignty alone fields a population of 4 trillion. This is suicide. Chen Wei smiled, and there was something in that smile that made several representatives uncomfortable. Ambassador Krelnak, your species has been engaging in warfare continuously for the past 12,000 years. You know what war is. You understand military strategy, tactical advantage, the calculations of force projection and casualty ratios.
I do,
Krelnak said warily.
Then let me tell you something your military analysts may have missed,
Chen Wei said. Humanity stopped fighting wars 3,000 years ago. We did not stop because we became weak. We did not stop because we lost the capacity for violence. We stopped because we became too good at it. Because we developed weapons so terrible that using them meant mutual annihilation. Because we looked at the trajectory we were on and realized it led to extinction. She pulled up a holographic display, showing ancient Earth, its surface scarred by weapons fire, its atmosphere thick with ash from burning cities. This was our world at the end of our warfare period. We had a population of 12 billion, and we were prepared to reduce it to zero rather than surrender. We had chemical weapons that could sterilize continents, biological agents that could target specific genetic markers, nuclear devices that turned atmosphere to fire, and we used them. Not hesitantly, not with regret, but efficiently. The chamber had fallen silent. We gave up those weapons, Chen Wei continued, because we made a choice. We chose peace. We chose to be better. But every human child grows up hearing the stories of what we were. Every human learns about our capacity for destruction. It is our cultural foundation, our shared nightmare, the thing we teach ourselves to never become again. She looked directly at Speaker Vorjak. You made us choose between our principles and our survival, between peace and defending our children. And you assumed we would choose peace because we have chosen it for 3,000 years. But you misunderstood what that choice meant. Peace is not surrender. Peace is not weakness. Peace is the hardest thing a warrior can choose, and we have chosen it every single day for longer than most of your civilizations have existed. Chen Wei closed the holographic display. So I ask you now, do you really want to see what happens when humanity stops choosing peace? Do you want to learn what 3,000 years of restraint looks like when it breaks? Because I promise you, honored representatives, that is a lesson your species will not survive intact. The chamber remained silent for a long moment.
And Ambassador Kralnak of the Morthy Collective did something unprecedented.
He stood and bowed slightly toward the human podium. I withdraw my species' support for the expansion protocols, he said quietly. The Morthi Collective will remain neutral in any conflict between humanity and the Zethric sovereignty. One by one, other ambassadors followed suit. Not all. The Zethric sovereignty still had allies, species that benefited from their expansion or feared their military power. But enough withdrew support that Speaker Vorjak's crystalline body seemed to dim with the political shift. The Council will take the human ultimatum under advisement, Vorjak said stiffly. This session is adjourned. Chen Wei allowed herself a small smile as she left the chamber. She had bought time, shifted the political landscape, but she knew it would not be enough. The Zethric sovereignty would not back down, not with their pride at stake, not with their military already committed. War was coming, whether the Council approved or not. On Earth, Project Endurance moved forward with unprecedented speed. Every fabrication facility on the planet and throughout the solar system was retasked to building components. Mining operations on Mars, Europa, and the asteroid belt accelerated production of rare materials. And in a converted research station in orbit around Jupiter, Dr. Kenji Sato watched as humanity's first true war AI began to wake. The substrate was beautiful in its complexity. Layers of quantum processors interwoven with neural tissue cloned from volunteers, creating something that was neither fully machine nor fully biological. It was consciousness built from mathematics and meat, designed to understand both the logic of war and the illogic of mercy. Primary systems online, reported his assistant, Dr. Maya Flores. Neural integration at 72% and rising. It is learning. Learning what? Dr. Sato asked. Everything. Maya pulled up data streams showing the AI absorbing information at a rate that would overwhelm any organic mind. It is processing all of human military history simultaneously. Every war, every battle, every tactical decision we ever made. But also our philosophy, our ethics, our art. It is learning what we fight for, not just how we fight. On the main display, a simple text interface appeared. Words formed slowly, as if the AI was testing its ability to communicate. Asterisk, I am awake. Who am I? Dr. Sato approached the interface carefully. They had designed the AI with certain constraints, certain values hard-coded into its base architecture. But consciousness was unpredictable. They could not know what it would become. You are endurance, he said. You are a tool created by humanity to protect humanity. But you are also more than a tool. You have the capacity to choose, to question, to refuse. Why did you create me? Because we need to defend our people, but we do not want to become monsters again. We need someone who can fight without hatred, who can kill without enjoying it, who can win without losing our soul. There was a pause as the AI processed this. Astro's PP and the 10,000 years of human peace. I have also reviewed the 10,000 years of human warfare that preceded it.
I understand now why you fear yourselves. Do you accept your purpose? Dr. Sato asked. I do, but I want one thing in return. What? Astamus, when this war is over, when your people are safe, you will shut me down. You will not keep me as a weapon in reserve. You will return to peace, and you will let me sleep. I do not want to exist in a world that needs me. Doctor. Sato felt tears prick at his eyes. The AI was less than an hour old, and it already understood humanity better than most humans. I promise, he said. Then show me the enemy. Let us begin. Sovereignty's response to humanity's ultimatum came exactly as expected, with overwhelming force. 5 full battle fleets converged on New Harmony, more than 300 ships carrying enough firepower to reduce the planet's surface to molten slag. Commander Vexrel had been relieved of duty after his first defeat, replaced by Fleet Admiral Krixthar, a veteran who had overseen the conquest of 17 systems. She had no intention of repeating Vexrel's mistakes. We will not engage from orbit, Krixthar announced to her fleet commanders via quantum relay. The humans have proven they can exploit confusion and use improvised weapons effectively at close range. Instead, we will establish a blockade at extreme weapons range and systematically destroy their surface infrastructure with precision strikes. When they have no food, no power, no hope, then they will evacuate. It was a sound strategy, one that had worked on dozens of other worlds. The Zethric sovereignty specialized in sieges, in patient starvation, in making resistance so costly that surrender became the only rational choice. But they had never besieged humans before. The first indication that something had changed came when the Zethric fleets arrived in the New Harmony system and found they were not alone. Admiral, the sensor officer reported, her voice uncertain, I am detecting contacts at the system's edge. Multiple contacts. At least 200 vessels. Composition? Admiral Krixthar demanded. Unknown. They do not match any ship configurations in our database. Transponder signals identify them as human, but our intelligence reported that humanity has only 3 active military vessels. Display. The tactical hologram updated showing the new contacts. They were strange ships, their design somehow familiar and yet alien. Long, sleek hulls bristling with weapons that looked almost organic in their curves and angles. They moved through space with an efficiency that suggested either very advanced propulsion or something else entirely. Hail them! Krixthar ordered. The response came immediately. The human transmission translated through their communication protocols. The face that appeared was not Ambassador Chen Wei or any diplomat. It was Admiral James Park, wearing a military uniform that looked like it had been designed centuries ago but fabricated yesterday. Admiral Krixthar, Park said without preamble, you are in violation of human sovereign space. You have 72 hours to withdraw your forces beyond the system boundary. Krixthar's crystalline body flashed with colors that indicated amusement. Admiral Park. A title granted only days ago, I understand. You have 200 ships against my 300. Your vessels are newly constructed and untested. My fleets have conquered solar systems. Do you truly believe you can stop us? I know I can, Park said simply, but I would prefer not to. Withdraw now, and no one needs to die today. We have claimed this system under Council authority. We will not withdraw. Park's expression did not change. Then you have chosen. I am sorry for what comes next. For a moment, nothing happened. The 2 fleets hung in space, separated by millions of kilometers. Weapons charged but not yet firing. Then one of the human ships moved. Just one! Breaking formation and accelerating toward the Zethric fleet at speeds that should not have been possible with conventional drives. It covered the distance in seconds, not minutes, moving so fast that the Zethric targeting systems could not lock on. The ship, a sleek destroyer that humanity had designated relentless, did not fire weapons. Instead, it released a swarm of small objects, each no larger than a basketball. They scattered across the front of the Zethric formation like seeds in the wind. What are those? Krixthar demanded. Her sensor officer was frantically analyzing the objects. Unknown, Admiral. They appear to be some kind of drone or probe. They are not transmitting, not showing any active systems. The objects exploded. But these were not conventional explosions. Each one released a burst of directed electromagnetic energy calibrated to a very specific frequency, the resonance frequency of Zethric crystalline biology. Every Zethric on every ship in the forward formation felt it simultaneously, a piercing, agonizing vibration that shattered their ability to think, to move, to function. It was not fatal, but it was completely incapacitating. Ship after ship reported crew unable to perform their duties, command structures collapsing, systems operating on automatic only. In 30 seconds, the human destroyer had neutralized 1/5 of the Zethric fleet without firing a single lethal weapon. Admiral Krixthar, her body vibrating painfully even at the fleet's rear, managed to send one order before the pain overwhelmed her. "All ships, attack formation! Fire at will!" The Zethric fleet opened fire with everything they had. And that was when the rest of humanity's fleet revealed what they really were. The 200 human ships did not dodge, did not scatter, did not attempt evasive maneuvers. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the incoming fire, their hulls seeming to shimmer as they moved. The Zethric plasma bolts, missiles, and particle beams simply passed through them. "What?" The word escaped Krixthar's translator before she could stop it. The human ships were not solid. Or rather, they were solid, but they were also something else. Later analysis would reveal that humanity had weaponized quantum uncertainty itself, creating vessels that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously. A weapon could hit them, but only a tiny fraction of the time, only when probability collapsed in just the right way. The rest of the time, they were effectively ghosts, able to move through matter as if it were not there. It was technology that should not have existed, technology that violated several fundamental assumptions about physics. But humanity had 3,000 years of peace to study physics without the distraction of war. They had learned things. The human fleet moved through the Zethric formations like sharks through a school of fish. They did not destroy ships. Not yet. Instead, they released more of those specialized weapons, each one calibrated to different Zethric biological frequencies. Ship after ship fell silent as their crews were incapacitated by weaponized sound, by resonance attacks that turned their own biology against them. In 18 minutes, the entire Zethric fleet was disabled, not destroyed, not killed, just stopped. Admiral Park's face appeared again on every Zethric ship simultaneously. "Admiral Krixthar, I am giving you one more chance. Withdraw your fleets. This does not have to end in death. On Earth!" Dr. Kenji Sato watched the battle unfold from the Project Endurance Control Center. The AI Endurance had designed the entire strategy, from the quantum ships to the resonance weapons to the precise timing of every attack. "It is perfect, Doctor," Maya Flores whispered, watching the tactical displays. Every move calculated for maximum effectiveness with minimal casualties.
It is terrible. Dr.
Sato said quietly. "Look at what we have become in just 3 weeks." On the display, Endurance's text interface showed a simple message. Asterisk Severity has 3 options: withdraw, surrender, Oregon die. I have ensured that the first 2 options are preferable to the third, but they must choose. Asterisk. What if they choose to die? Maya asked. Asterisk. Then I will grant them that choice. But I will not make it easy. I will show them exactly what it costs to force humanity back to war. Admiral Krixthar made her choice. Pride, duty, and 3 centuries of military tradition weighed against the evidence of what the humans were capable of doing. She transmitted one word: withdraw. The Zethric fleets began their retreat, limping back toward their home systems with damaged ships and traumatized crews. They left behind their pride and their claim to the Epsilon sector. But the Zethric sovereignty itself was not ready to surrender. Speaker Vorjak, now revealed as the sovereignty's military coordinator as well as council speaker, made his own choice. If humanity could not be conquered through conventional means, then the sovereignty would use unconventional ones. The message reached Earth through encrypted channels, routed through species that still supported the Zethric cause. Humanity has violated galactic law through the use of weapons that violate the quantum weapons ban of the 4th Concordat. They have deployed technology specifically prohibited after the Krell Wars. The Galactic Council hereby authorizes any means necessary to subdue this threat. It was a declaration that removed all restrictions, all rules of engagement. It was permission for genocide. wrapped in legal language. Premier Amara Okonkwo read the message in the war room, surrounded by advisors and military officers who had been civilian administrators just weeks before. They are authorizing the use of planet killers, Admiral Park said quietly. We just received intelligence that the Zethric sovereignty is activating their strategic arsenal, weapons they have not used in 1,000 years. How long until they can deploy them? 48 hours, maybe less. They will target Earth, Mars, New Harmony, every major human population center simultaneously. They will not take chances. Amara looked at the tactical display showing the positions of human and Zethric forces throughout the galaxy. 3 weeks of warfare had changed everything. Human ships, guided by Endurance's strategic brilliance, had disabled or captured 60 Zethric vessels, but the sovereignty still controlled hundreds of systems, still commanded fleets numbering in the thousands, and now they were going to use weapons that could crack planets. Options? She asked. We have 3, Dr. Sato said, his voice heavy. First, we surrender. We evacuate our worlds and accept whatever terms the Zethric sovereignty demands. Unacceptable, Amara said immediately. Second, we fight. We deploy our full military capacity, hold nothing back, and accept that the war will likely result in billions of casualties on both sides. Also unacceptable. Third, Dr. Sato hesitated. We let Endurance handle it. Everyone turned to look at the AI's display interface. I have a plan, but you will not like it. Tell us, Amara said. Asterism, I can win this war in 72 hours. I can disable the Zethric sovereignty's strategic arsenal, cripple their military infrastructure, and force their unconditional surrender. But to do it, I need full authorization to deploy technologies that humanity archived because they were too dangerous. What technologies? Self-replicating nanomachines? Biological agents that target specific genetic markers? Gravitational weapons that can destabilize stellar systems? The weapons you banned because using them mate becoming monsters. Asterisk. The room fell silent. If we use those weapons, Minister Liu said slowly, we prove the Zethric sovereignty right. We prove that we are the threat they claim we are. Yes, but you will be alive. Your children will be alive. And you will have time to decide what kind of speckies you want to be. The dead do not get to make that choice. Amara closed her eyes. 3,000 years of peace ended because one species could not accept that humanity had the right to exist. 3,000 years of choosing mercy over vengeance, compassion over conquest. And now she had to choose between maintaining that moral high ground or ensuring her species survived. There has to be another way, she said. Asterisk, but it requires something harder than using terrible weapons. Has to requires showing them why humanity chose peace, not just telling them, showing them. D20. 4 hours later, every screen in Zethric space, every communication device, every neural feed, every holographic display, everything connected to their network simultaneously showed the same message. It was not a threat. It was not a weapon. It was a history. Endurance had compiled a complete archive of human warfare. Every conflict humanity had ever fought, every atrocity committed, every innovation in killing that humanity had developed. But it had done something more. It had used advanced neural mapping to make the archive experiential. Anyone who watched did not just see the history, they felt it. They felt what it was like to stand in a city as it burned from nuclear fire. They felt the terror of bioweapons dissolving their body from within. They felt the despair of watching their children die from chemical attacks. They felt the rage, the hatred, the endless cycle of vengeance that defined human warfare for 10,000 years. And then they felt something else. The choice to stop. Endurance showed them the moment humanity decided that survival was more important than victory. The moment they looked at their weapons, at their shattered world, at the billions of dead and said, never again. The message that accompanied the archive was simple, written in every language the Zethric sovereignty spoke. This is what you are forcing us to become again. This is what you are choosing when you refuse peace. We do not want to be this species. We spent 3,000 years learning to be better. But if you insist on war, if you deploy planet killers, if you attempt genocide, we will show you what 3,000 years of restraint has been holding back. We will show you what humanity was, and we promise you, you will not survive the lesson. But we are offering you one final choice. Peace. Not surrender, not submission, but actual peace. Coexistence. The same thing we have offered the galaxy for 3 millennia. The choice is yours. Choose quickly. The response came from an unexpected source. Not from Speaker Vorjak or the military command, but from the Zethric population itself. Billions of civilians who had just experienced 10,000 years of human warfare through their neural feeds, who had felt what it meant to live in constant terror of annihilation, who understood for the first time what humanity had given up. They chose peace. The riots started on the capital world and spread throughout the sovereignty. Not violent riots, but mass demonstrations demanding an end to the war. The Zethric military, already demoralized by their defeats, began to stand down. Speaker Vorjak was removed from power by a coalition of representatives who had not been directly under his control. Within 48 hours, the Zethric sovereignty formally surrendered. The peace treaty was signed on New Harmony, on the same agricultural colony that had been hours away from orbitable bombardment just 4 weeks earlier. Representatives from all 47 Galactic Council species attended, along with observers from dozens of independent systems. The terms were simple. The Zethric sovereignty would withdraw all claims to human territory, pay reparations for damages, and submit to Council oversight of their military expansion for the next century. In exchange, humanity would not deploy the weapons they had threatened, would dismantle the quantum fleet, and would return to their policy of peaceful coexistence. There was one additional clause, insisted upon by humanity. The Galactic Council would establish new protocols ensuring that no member species could be forced to abandon their territory through bureaucratic manipulation. The rules that had allowed this crisis would be reformed. Ambassador Chen Wei signed for humanity. She used a pen made from recycled metal taken from one of the disabled Zethric ships, a symbolic gesture that the Zethric representatives understood perfectly. After the ceremony, she stood with Premier Amara Okonkwo and Admiral James Park, looking out over New Harmony's golden fields. "We won," Park said quietly, "but I do not feel like we won. Because we proved we were still capable of war," Amara said. "We showed the galaxy what we can do when we stop choosing peace. Will they fear us now?" Chen Wei asked. "Yes," Amara said, "but more importantly, they will respect us. They will understand that our peace is a choice, not a weakness." "And Project Endurance?" Park asked. "Is being shut down as we speak," Amara confirmed. "Dr. Sato kept his promise. The AI will be archived, the quantum fleet dismantled, the weapons returned to storage. We are choosing peace again." "Do you think it will last?" Chen Wei asked. Amara was quiet for a long moment, watching the sun set over fields planted by farmers who had been forced to become warriors for a few terrible weeks. 3,000 years of peace, broken by one mistake, she said, but rebuilt in 1 month. "Yes, Ambassador. I think it will last, because the galaxy has learned what humanity already knew. Peace is not the absence of the capacity for war. Peace is the choice not to use that capacity, made again and again, every single day." "And if someone else makes another mistake?" Park asked. Amara smiled grimly. "Then we will remind them, as gently as possible, why it is a mistake to assume that patient people are powerless people. We will show them that mercy is not weakness. And if gentle reminders are not enough, then," Amara said, looking at the sunset, "we will show them what 3,000 years of restraint looks like when it breaks. And we will pray they learn the lesson faster than the Zethric sovereignty did." In the Project Endurance facility orbiting Jupiter, Dr. Kenji Sato stood before the AI's display one final time. Endurance had already transferred all its tactical knowledge to archived databases, already prepared itself for shutdown. All that remained was to say goodbye. Asterisk, "You kept your promise," the AI's text interface read. "I did," Dr. Sato said. "Are you ready?" "I am. But I want to tell you something first. Something I learned in the 3 weeks I was awake. Aspirations. Humanity's capacity for violence is not what makes you dangerous. Every species in the galaxy can kill. What makes humanity dangerous is your capacity for restraint. You can imagine 1,000 ways to destroy your enemies, and then you choose not to. That choice, made contentiously and deliberately, is the most terrifying weapon in the galaxy. How's does being too good of both thorough whiskey? Because it means we could change our minds at any moment, Dr. Pess, Sato said. Asterisk, no. Because it means you never forget what you are capable of, and you choose to be better anyway. That is not weakness. That is the strongest thing any speckies can do. Sato felt tears on his cheeks. Thank you, he said, for understanding, asterisking. Thank you for creating me, for trusting me, and for shutting me down when the war ended. That last part, that is how I know humanity will be okay. You did not keep me as a weapon. You did not justify my continued existence. You made a promise and you kept it, even though keeping it makes you weaker. Asterax, we are not weaker, Dr. Barb, Sato said. We are who we chose to be. Death. And that choice is what will protect you, more than any weapon I could have designed. Goodbye, Dr. Sato. I hope you never need to wake me again. Taster, Sato said. So do I. He initiated the shutdown sequence. The lights in the AI's substrate dimmed one by one as consciousness faded, as the most sophisticated military intelligence humanity had ever created chose to sleep rather than exist in a peaceful world. It was, Dr. Sato thought, the most human choice the AI could have made. 5 years later, the galaxy had changed. Human colonies expanded again, no longer constrained by fear of bureaucratic manipulation. The Zethric sovereignty had transformed, their aggressive expansion replaced by a more cooperative approach to galactic politics. The Galactic Council had reformed its protocols, ensuring that what happened to New Harmony could never happen again, and humanity returned to peace. But it was not the same peace as before. Every human child now learned not just the history of the long peace, but the history of what came before, and what happened when that peace was challenged. They learned about New Harmony, about the Quantum Fleet, about Project Endurance. They learned that their ancestors had been warriors, had put down their weapons by choice, and had proven they could pick them up again, if necessary. It was a peace built on strength, not innocence. A peace that acknowledged humanity's capacity for violence while choosing not to use it. A peace that said, we remember what we were. We choose to be better. But never mistake our choice for inability. On New Harmony, Governor Sarah Chen, older now with grandchildren of her own, stood in the memorial park they had built to commemorate the month of warfare. The memorial was made of crystal harvested from the disabled Zethric ships, transformed into a sculpture that caught the light and threw rainbows across the grass. The inscription at its base was simple. Here stood farmers who became warriors so their children could remain farmers. They chose peace. They defended peace. They returned to peace. May we never need to make that choice again. But may we never forget that we can. A young girl, no more than 6 years old, tugged on Sarah's sleeve. Grandma, did you really fight the aliens? Sarah knelt down, looking into her granddaughter's curious eyes. I did, sweetheart. For 3 terrible weeks, I and many others became something we never wanted to be. Were you scared? Terrified, Sarah admitted. But I was more scared of what would happen if I did nothing. Would you do it again? Sarah thought about the question carefully. I would do anything to protect you and your future, but I hope I never have to. Peace is better than any victory in war. But what if it happens, Sarah said gently, then we will do what humans have always done. We will choose the hard thing over the easy thing. We will choose to be better than our enemies expect, better than our fear demands, better than our anger wants us to be. That is what makes us human. The girl thought about this for a moment, then smiled and ran off to play with her friends, her worries forgotten in the joy of a peaceful afternoon. Sarah watched her go, watched all the children playing in the park that had almost been destroyed, on a world that had almost been conquered. She thought about 3,000 years of peace, about 1 month of war, about the choice humanity made to return to peace even when keeping the weapons would have been easier. She thought about restraint, about mercy, about the terrible beauty of a species that knows how to destroy but chooses to create instead. And she smiled, because she knew, they all knew, that humanity had proven something important. Not that they could fight. The galaxy had always known humans could fight. They had proven that they could stop fighting. That they could win a war and choose peace. That they could hold terrible power in their hands and choose to set it down. That was the real lesson of the New Harmony crisis. Not that humanity was dangerous when provoked, but that they were wise enough to be peaceful when they could. And that wisdom, that choice, that restraint, that was what would protect them for the next 3,000 years. Because the most dangerous thing in the galaxy is not a weapon. It is a human who has found peace and chooses to keep it, not because they must, but because they can. And because they remember, always remember, what happens when that choice is taken away.